I'm going to ask you to take your seats. Everybody, thank you. Thank you for an incredible time this whole week and a series of vigorous, frank, courageous conversations. Our time is coming to an end, although we're not done yet. We are about to experience a fantastic session together. I'll only take a couple of seconds as I wait for folks to settle down. Please have your seats, take your seats. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So it is my honor and my pleasure to introduce to you our closing plenary speaker and / artist and performer. She's the recipient of the Sphinx Medal of Excellence. She's a pianist extraordinaire. She's a motivational speaker. She's a role model. She is a friend. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a Sphinx Familia welcome to Jade Simmons.
What's up, SphinxConnect? Yes! Oh my gosh, I cannot tell you how excited I am to be here. I was just telling someone a few hours ago that I think this is the first time in many years that I've spoken to a complete audience full of artists. So can I tell you, I just feel like I'm home. So thank you in advance for being who you are. It means there's so many things that I'm not gonna have to explain to you, because usually I'm in front of audiences that have no idea what it means to be an artist. And so it's exciting that I don't have to explain stuff. Let me just first, though, explain how special it is for me to be back here. Afa mentioned that I'm a former recipient of the Sphinx Medal of Excellence. What she and Aaron may not know is that came at a time in my career where I was wondering, what is next? And I had this thing in my spirit, in my soul, in my heart that was telling me I was supposed to be impacting away from the stage as well, but I wasn't sure how to really make that transition. I had done it a little bit, and out of the blue, Aaron called. Now, what you don't know is that, or what he didn't know is I had always known about Sphinx. As a matter of fact, I wasn't a fan. I'm gonna tell you why I wasn't a fan. Because when I was a middle schooler, you guys didn't have anything for pianists. It was always about you string players. And so Sphinx was this mythical, magical organization that I so desperately wanted to be a part of. But at that point, when I was younger, there was no entry point. So to get a phone call, literally from you, I was in a diner back in Charleston, South Carolina when you called, let me know that you should all know. Do you understand that when you are doing your thing, when you're doing what you're doing, when you're putting your heart in it, when your nose is to the grindstone, there are people who are having meetings about you that you don't even know. There are people that know your name, know your talent, know your heart, and they are making decisions about your life that are going to forever change the trajectory. And that's what you guys were doing when you made that call. It changed so many things in my life and in my mindset about what I could do. And so I'm so honored to be here on this stage today. Now, I have this nickname that was given to me called classical music's #1 maverick. But I didn't, like, it was given to me. It's not like that fake nickname, you know, like you gave yourself in high school. Like, I used to say my nickname was Peaches, but my husband was like, your nickname was never Peaches. I just liked the way it sounded, you see what I'm saying? But it wasn't really my nickname. But classical music's #1 maverick was a nickname that was given to me. But if I'm being really honest, I did not go to school, get all those degrees, practice all those hours to be named classical music's #1 maverick. All I wanted to do was be a straight ahead classical concert pianist. I imagined my life would sound a lot like this. Because you know you're not legit until you play some Mozart. There'd be Chopin, of course. Showy Chopin. Beethoven. Wasn't trying to be a maverick, thank you. Was just trying to play Beethoven, Bach, Rachmaninoff, Chopin, wash, rinse, repeat. And after killing off 2 piano teachers, and that's real, my first piano teacher, I was 8 years old, which I told some of you earlier. 8 years old is like over the hill in classical music to be starting. So by the time I went to my first lesson, I'd been hearing all of that music. And so I thought at my first lesson I was gonna play Beethoven Appassionata, yeah? So imagine my chagrin when after the first lesson, that guy broke out John Thompson, Red and White, level 1. Yeah, remember that? Wait for it. Yeah. So had that lesson, and I went home and was like, oh my gosh, Mom, Dad, this is crazy. I want to play Chopin and Beethoven. And I learned the entire John Thompson book in a week, brought it back and said, teacher, this was Mr. Wise back in Charleston. I said, I can play the whole book. Can we just move on? And he said, no, Jade, we must go 1 page at a time. That torture went on for 8 or 9 months, and then unfortunately, Mr. Wise passed away. Very sad. I don't know why you're laughing. Very sad. But I was a little bit happy because I knew I was going to get a new piano teacher. So I go to my second teacher, Dr. Green, who's not only classically trained, but plays jazz and gospel. I thought I was going to leave playing Chopin and blues chords and foot pedals, and he broke out a level 2 John Thompson Green and White book. I should be grateful because at least then I was going like this. You guessed it. So you have to understand, at this point, it's a dire situation. I go home and I'm devastated and I don't want to go back to my lessons. I want to quit. This teacher too said that I had to play out of these books 1 page at a time. And after 5 or 6 months, he also died. So I'm not so funny anymore, huh? Yeah, so now I'm going to that third teacher and I'm feeling like, it would be irresponsible of me not to tell her what had happened to the teachers who came before me. So at that lesson, I go to her. This is Kay Whitehead, still back in Charleston. I say, Miss Whitehead, look, my first 2 teachers insisted I play out of these John Thompson books, and they were dead within a year. She leaned down to me and she said, Jade, what would you like to play? And because of her, I am standing in front of you. Listen, you were never designed just to be anything like just an artist or just a mother or just a teacher. You were always designed to be multifaceted, creative beings, but sometimes we need people who recognize that in us. And this teacher knew she was gonna have to do everything differently because she had someone who was different in front of her. So she, I believe, chose to do things differently because she saw different opportunities, plus she didn't want to die. But I really do believe she was motivated to do something differently. Because of this lady, I can play what I'm going to play for you right now. This is Rachmaninoff's C-sharp minor prelude. you. Pretty good, right? Pretty good. Pretty good. I thought I was pretty good too. Till I got to college. That's where I realized everybody and their grandma was good. And you know how it is in our industry, there's like 3 different demographics because, I believed all the lies. Do you know the lies? Practice makes perfect. The cream rises to the top. Nobody tells you what to do when everybody's cream. And I remember coming out and doing the best I knew how to do, which was to compete. I'm sure none of you can relate to being competitive in here, so probably talking to myself. But I remember what it felt like to think my only option was to compete, and I was going to compete to death. The problem in my industry is that, your industry too, we have these 3 demographics. On the left here are those annoying little child prodigies. You know those guys, they play the same Rachmaninoff, but they're like 3 years old. They can't even reach the pedals, so it's cute. They come out with the pigtails and the puffy dress, right? They do what you do, but they're way cuter at doing it. Then on this side is that other demographic. They're those old guys. I don't mean a little bit old. I mean like 150 years old. They didn't just play Beethoven, they played golf with Beethoven. You know those guys? And they recorded not just 1, not just 2, but all of Beethoven's sonatas. And then in the middle, there was me, African-American female classical pianist. Do you know how many concerts I played where nobody even looked like me in the audience? Where nobody was the same age as I was? And I was so confused because I loved this music. I felt like it was some of the best music in the world in so many ways, but I didn't see other people who looked like me enjoying the music. I knew there had to be something wrong with that picture. But before I got to that realization, all I knew was just to compete, so I would choreograph what I call these samurai recitals. You know how it is, because you gotta prove yourself if you're gonna play classical music. I'd come on stage, I'd be in my fancy gown. I wouldn't smile because classical music is serious business. Nobody should be having fun at a classical music concert, so I would come out with a scowl on my face because I was serious. And I would bow. And I'd sit down and I would play the heck out of this piano 2 hours. I might give you a 5-minute intermission. You better run, use the bathroom, come back. Still don't have any fun. I'm gonna play Rachmaninoff, not just 1 Chopin etude, but 5 Chopin etudes. The biggest Beethoven sonata ever. You must start with Bach, of course, not just a prelude and fugue, but a toccata and fugue. I mean, I had the list. Can I tell you that I would come out and this thing that I loved to do, that I had waited so long to get to do, began to be the bane of my existence. Because all I was thinking about was you. Were you impressed with what I was doing? Let me tell you, I don't care how impressive you are at this instrument. There is one thing that I need you to understand if you're gonna start moving like a boss in the world of the arts. First thing, for all of us who still have thick skulls, that's those of us thinking, I don't care what she says, I'm just gonna practice and everything's gonna be okay. Listen, whether you like it or not, you were designed to do big things beyond the stage. Your instrument, your arts position is only the entry point to the lane that I love to call purpose. From the day you were born, I even believe before you were in the womb, you were designed to be on a very unique path that only you can provide. Here's the catch though. Most people don't believe this. They live and die never knowing or believing that they're designed to offer something new to the world. And that gives you a chance to look like a trailblazer when all you're really doing is doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. It's one of the most exciting realizations that I had from the stage. The main point here is what your purpose is and is not. I thought that my purpose was to play the piano. What I'm realizing is that your purpose is not the thing you do, it's the thing that happens in other people when you're doing what you're doing. You see, to get through these concerts, these samurai concerts, I started telling stories to the audience. Now, they thought I was being charming. I was just trying to catch my breath in between the 5 etudes and the Beethoven sonata. And so I would tell these stories about the composer at first, and I would start telling stories about my life and how it intertwined with the music. Funny things started happening. I'd get done with these concerts and I'm waiting to hear how impressive I was. Did they see how fast I played that C-sharp minor, you know? And the lines were long and the people were coming and I was feeling good and they would say, Jade, oh my gosh, that Chopin you played was beautiful, but the story you told about the Chopin just reminded me about my dead grandmother who used to bake cookies with Chopin in the background. I'm like, you're dead, Mima. Did you not see me play the heck out of that cadenza? Did you not see what I just laid down? Excuse me. Next person would come, oh my gosh, the Beethoven was fantastic, but the story you told about the Beethoven, and I would just be offended. Because they weren't talking about how impressive I was. Took me probably a year to realize what they were saying. They were saying, Jade, we came for one thing. We paid ticket money for one thing, but we left getting more than we bargained for. We feel differently, we think differently, we look at things differently because of something you said, not just because of something you played. And I'm not just speaking to instrumentalists today, I'm speaking to anyone in power position, which is teaching, which is arts administration. People are really coming to be affected by you. Just so happens that this instrument for some of us, that title for some of you, that position, is simply the vehicle for your purpose. One of the first things that an artist has to really decide to do, and when I say artist, I mean every single person in the room, by the way. You are all artists. I don't care if you didn't practice this week or not, you're still an artist. First thing an artist has to do is lead their own artistic path. Some of us are still waiting around to be discovered. I always say, don't wait around to be discovered. Discover yourself instead. That's the biggest mindset shift you're going to need to make, aside from the purpose mindset shift. Then what you're going to have to do differently is build new opportunities to express who you truly are and what you truly offer. People always say, well, Jade, you know, that's a scary thing. Someone in our FOMO NOMO session earlier today said, you know, what do you do when you start creating and doing wilder things in the concert hall? How do you find an audience for that? I truly believe that your audience finds you. The truer you are to yourself on stage, the more of yourself you bring to the stage, whatever that stage is, whatever the office looks like, the more the right people find you. You know, and one of the easiest ways, I just want to be practical in my advice, when you want to create a new experience for people, you start with something that's familiar. Everybody knows this, right? Got their attention, why not give them something a little more unexpected? Now you want to get people thinking that they're not sure they're in the right room. you. But listen, that's only half the battle. Because everything I've done just now, you've heard in some way, shape, or form. But you see, when you take your time with your audience and you stretch them, that's acting like a boss, by the way, that's being a leader, you now have room to do whatever the heck you want to do. And so why would I only come to the stage and bring a part of myself when really I know I've been keeping a secret from you guys? Secret that I actually like music that's not just classical. Can we say that? I think that the best artist leaders, the best artist bosses, you know, they decide that if they like a little hip hop, they like a little rap, why can that not live in the same space? I mean, this is the MP3 generation. If I were to go look at your MP3 player, you've got a little bit of everything on there. Am I right? So why not create an experience that you might be ready to go on a journey for? I believe that true artists don't just do what's always been done. They decide to come in and do something very unexpected. Why shouldn't you decide to become the remix? Listen. Now, I want y'all to forget for a minute where we are, because when you really start to stretch people, they should not only forget where they are, they should forget who they are. I'm gonna play a little version of Flight of the Bumblebee that I like to call The Flight. Thank you. Listen, after you decide to lead your own path, a true artist boss decides they're going to lead their audiences. Audiences want to be, what, is this not happening at your concerts? If this is not happening at your concerts, you are doing something wrong. Listen, audiences want to be surprised, not satisfied. I don't believe in managing expectations. I hate that phrase. Never say that to me if we're working together. When I hear we're gonna manage expectations, I actually hear we're gonna do the least little bit possible to call this thing successful. I dare you to decide to create experiences, whether it's in administration, whether it's as a teacher or performer, that don't just manage expectations, but exceed them unexpectedly. There's something magical that happens when people get what they didn't ask for. It's really powerful. Some of you say, well, I'm worried I'm gonna lose some of my audience. Let me just go ahead and relieve you. You are gonna lose some of your audience. What's really powerful though is you're gonna gain your true audience. Do you know that there are sets of ears that are designed to the frequency of your voice, the frequency of your leadership, the frequency of your instrument and the way that you play it? And you want to make sure that you're creating a space that has all three of these things. I call it the triple threat trio. Don't just impress your audiences like I was trying to do early in my career. Decide intentionally that you want to impact them instead. Inspiration must be a part of what you do. Make an intentional effort to move your audience. You want them to feel more. You want them to feel better than when they came in. How many of you are feeling just a little bit more energy than when you came in? Yes, okay, I did my job. You see, information must also be a part. I'm gonna push back a little bit on something I heard earlier today. I was sitting in on the panel session that was right before mine, and I heard a discussion that was ensuing about, whose job is it to educate? We were saying, it's not my job to educate you. White people, I don't have to educate you. You should research my culture and the way that I grew up. You should research that. Listen, I don't see education as an obligation. I see it as an opportunity. I actually believe it is my job that if I'm on a stage, I am granted the possibility to teach people who I have as a captive audience for the next how many ever minutes. It is my job to teach you. You could Google, but people don't Google what they aren't already interested in. You see, watch, when I leave here, y'all gonna be Googling me. I know how it goes. I know. Little Facebook account's gonna go up, Twitter, Instagram. Oh my God, I love you. I know how it goes. But most of you are like, I had no idea who she was before we got here. And that's okay. You don't have to know who I am before I get here. You just have to never be able to forget me by the time I leave. That's how an artist boss thinks. Entertainment, hey, news flash, it's really okay to have fun in your concert experiences. There is no reason in 2019 that the world should still be thinking that classical, the arts, high arts, whatever you want to call them, has to be boring. There was a study in the UK where they were trying to find out why classical audiences were dwindling, and they started interviewing people about why they weren't going to classical music concerts. You know what the number one answer was? Because they had already been to a classical music concert and they weren't going back. Listen, it is not the music's fault. You're here because you love the music. You're here because you felt some kind of a link that you couldn't explain. I couldn't explain to my friends who were only listening to Missy Elliott, who I love, or who were only listening to insert pop artist name here. I couldn't explain to them why Rachmaninoff dude just gets me and I get him. I just couldn't explain it. I felt that way since I was little. Goosebumps are a part of the experience that I like to offer. I couldn't explain my relationship, but I know it's been with me since I was little. That means the music itself is not boring. So entertainment is really okay. And I dare you to stop allowing people, if it's not you, stop allowing people to associate entertaining as being selling out, as being part of lowbrow experiences. Does anybody remember that? Like, you have to decide, am I a performer or an entertainer? I can't be both. Yes, you can. I think it's a mandate that you should be. Entertaining is not associated with anything that means less than. Next, you want to lead your industry, every industry, including every person is currently not moving ahead as much as it should be. As I stand up here right now, my mind is zooming ahead, thinking about, man, what I gotta do next time is I have to offer this. I have to give this next time. Listen, if you're standing still for even a moment, there's something more you could be doing to push forward. And so every industry I've learned is looking to push forward. I spend a lot of my time these days speaking to billion-dollar companies, helping them have billion-dollar breakthrough in their people. They're bringing in the artists to come speak to them about that. First, I'm like, let's start by you giving me $1 billion. Let's go from there, yeah? Listen, every industry, every person is waiting to be pushed. You have to determine to be the thing that does the pushing. People say, how do I start, with creating experiences that push people? One of the easiest answers is to insert more of yourself. I let it ring in the audience because we have an aversion to that word, in classical music especially, self. Because it's not about me. It's about Beethoven. It's about Mozart. It's about the art. It's not about me at all, so I'll just wear all black and blend into the background and come out and die on my sword in service to Chopin. You laughing, but you know what I'm talking about, yes? Listen, this is a part of who I am. Why would I not let you guys have all of this? You have to start to believe that everything about you, all of your likes, your personality, your preferences, guess what else? Your belief systems, the things that inspire you are designed to be a part of the experience you offer. I remember getting very curious about this career that I'm having now, which is I'm brought in to help people find their own rhythm. I mean, forget marching to the beat of your own drum. I help you build a whole new drum and then march to it. And I got very curious as to where this obsession with rhythm came from. In college, I had a percussion and dance ensemble called Boom Shaka, which was like stomp back in the day. When I was in middle school and high school, I was in the drum line. My parents had me in ballet. They also had me in African dancing. But rhythm was always there. When I started my career in classical, I was doing a lot of new music, right? And so I started looking back. You have to get curious about where you came from. I don't just mean your ethnic heritage, your cultural background. Get curious about why you're attracted and drawn to the things that you're drawn to. I look back, this is actually my daughter, Jossie. I am married and I have a son, Jaden, who's 11, and a little girl named Jossie. Jossie inserts herself. Do you hear me? She is extra. I don't know where she gets it from, but she's so extra. And she just has this habit of showing up as all of herself all the time. Even when it's 6 in the morning and we have not had our coffee yet, she shows up. You're gonna have to believe that you're designed to show up. I got very curious about this rhythm thing. And when I looked back in time, I actually found an amazing set of pictures. And in one of those pictures, I was about 2 years old, and I was playing a set of African bongos. And I asked my father, what was I doing in this picture? What was going on? And he said, well, Jade, he used to play this Olatunji, African drumming album, every day. And he said, I would always go and get the drums and play along with it. Listen, there is proof of your existence. There is proof that you're designed to operate how you're designed to operate. And what I mean by that is if there's proof that you're supposed to be a certain way, why would you deprive the rest of the world to all of yourself? Could you dare to actually believe that something as wild as African drumming could go with something as awesome as Rachmaninoff or classical music? I tell you what, there's something magical when you dare to blend things that the world might on the surface say doesn't go together. Take a listen to this. And I have a little more of those drums in the monitor and in the house. So you leave your industry, this industry, by deciding to insert more of yourself, more of your background. When you show up to spaces and you're the only one who looks like you do, you're right. The onus of explaining your entirety of your culture is not on you, but you better speak up and insert what you can. When you start doing that, what happens is you not only lead in your industry, you start to lead, and you should be striving to lead in new arenas. Listen, the mindset shift here is you must assume that every industry, every space, every people group, every belief system is somehow interrelated, somehow linked together for good. And if you can start believing that, what'll happen is you'll prepare differently. You'll prepare looking for the link. Don't go into places looking for what's different. I dare you to imagine that skin is nothing but the covering we need to protect our vital organs. I dare you to start thinking that way. Whether or not it's true in that room, pretend like it is and come in assuming that you're there for a very specific assignment. I believe that every performance is an assignment. So all of these logos here are some of the companies that I've had the wonderful opportunity to impact. You'll see industries that don't connect. What does Pfizer have to do with NBC Universal or Beachbody, which reminds me to Kira, please write down, Jade needs to do more crunches because Beachbody's coming up. I can't go in there and look, not having it together. You see what I'm saying? But when you understand that all of these things, there's a link, and what if you happen to be the link? It allows you to impact in a way that's just so powerful. I never knew when I was crafting these impressive samurai recitals that my career was going to go beyond the stage as a concert pianist. But what I can tell you now is that if someone said, we'd give you back your original dream to just play classical, just play with all the best orchestras and all the best halls, and I've done a lot of that, would you go back to just doing that? There's no way in the world I'd ever go backwards, because the type of influence that you're designed to have, the type of impact you're designed to make goes outside of this room. When you start to lead in new arenas, what happens is that people begin to see things differently because you're bringing part of yourself and part of your background to that room. And what you want to do when you get in those rooms is you want to start to link your entire experience together so people can understand. You've got to tell your story. When you tell your story, there's lots of ways that you can tell your story. You can tell your story in a way that people have to listen. They sit up and listen. You can tell your story in love, and I want to encourage you as I end right now to remember that this last thing I'm going to do is not just the closing spectacle of the lady who came in and played the piano and did the electronics and talked. What this represents, what I'm about to do, is what it looks like when you decide to bring every single part of yourself to every single table, every single time. I'm going to end by playing a piece for you called Black Beethoven. Normally, I have to spend 5 minutes setting this piece up and explaining the lyrics to the audience who's about to hear it. This is the first time I'm performing it for an audience who will get it right away. I hope you've enjoyed this. I've so enjoyed being here. Thank you so much, SphinxConnect. I will say, do not leave me hanging on this, okay? When you hear it come in, when the beat drops, do the stanky face like we all know how to do, and play along. I was 12 years old trying to find my way in. Thought I'd enter a competition, I'd play Beethoven. They went fool when I hit the keys real fast. Really, they was worried that their precious time we wouldn't last. I won it all, had the trophy in my right hand, but on my left was a seersuckered old man. He looked me dead in my cute little black face, told me with a smile I was a credit to my whole race. I was worried for this man, he about to get got. If my angry daddy was in earshot, but he kept going, said he wished the others were like me. Only they would play a little Beethoven and Debussy. I shoot him off, no time for nonsense, but who'd have thought I'd keep running into ignorance. One chick thought I was the usher, so I seated her in row 9. Then I proceeded to take the stage, proceeded to blow her mind. Get up off of my gown, clown. Get up off of my stage, Gage. You're not gonna block out my shine. Brian, you're not gonna hamper this grind. Ryan, get up out of my trailer. Taylor, get up out of my cake. Jake, you're not gonna be holding this back. Jack, didn't you know Beethoven was black? You whack. I got a little older, thought I had a breakthrough. Not no idea how many hoops I jumped through. I was a nice girl, never playing contrary. So they told me they only wanted me in February. They tell me, Jay, you better get what you can get. Play what you can play, net what you can net. Take what you can take. Nah, I worked too hard to settle for some basic. Better look again, better look a little closer, better get some LASIK. First time I played something, wow, critics furious. Then I had them looking me up, had them curious. Next time I see them, taking me serious. Next time I look, they hook, got him delirious. I'm not cocky, y'all, not trying to self-anoint, but like Gladwell said, I've reached my tipping point. But most importantly, I'm rocking what Almighty gave me. Thank God for that. Don't know what I'd do to them fools if he had to stay me. Monday in Moscow, Tuesday in LA, Wednesday I'ma take my skills down to Brazil's. Check my calendar, dates with persistence. I'm so busy, my stalkers need personal assistance. Get up off of my gown, clown. Get up off of my stage, Gage. You're not gonna be blocking my shine. Ryan, you're not gonna hamper this grind. Ryan, get up out of my trailer. Taylor, get up out of my cake. Jake, you're not gonna be holding this back. Jack, didn't you know Beethoven was black? You whack. Thank you. Alpha. I think we have questions. It's time for a few.
Thank you, Jade. You were incredible. What a great send-off from SphinxConnect 2019, Leaders Rising. But we're not done yet. We do have a few questions, a little bit of time for a few questions. And I think given time and where we are, and just before we head off to hear the amazing Sphinx Symphony and the laureates of the Sphinx competition, I want to open it up to, pardon? Encore.
I'm tired after that. I'm tired.
The artist wants questions, and we are an artist-centric organization, so we're going to ask questions. There we go. I got you, Jade. Anybody? No.
Please
yes,
ask.
ma'am.
Please. You want to go to that mic?
There we go. There are mics on either side, and we'll just stick to mics this time. Can you reach Yeah.
How do I do that?
I don't want you to do that. I want you to do you. I want you to do you. And you just find what it is that makes you tick, what it is that makes you different. You find the conversations that you seem to be able to have that nobody else can. People always say you shouldn't speak about religion, you shouldn't speak about politics, you shouldn't speak about race. And I'm able to do that in any room that I'm in, and I don't see any backlash for it. But instead, we have illuminating conversations that people wouldn't have had if I weren't in the room. So you find the thing that makes you crucial, and you do it, and you do it, and you do it over and over again. Yeah?
That's awesome.
Thank you.
I'm going to go to this side of the stage.
Yes, sir.
Come on in.
Hi, my name is Emery Kidd. I'm an instructor at HBCU down in Alabama
Yes.
State University.
Of course. Of course.
My question is, I see you doing your thing with your computer, your setup, you programs you beat out. How important do you think it is for our curriculum or our music curriculum to include music technology?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, look, I have a son who's 11 who I wanted desperately to play the piano, and he refused. He refused the entirety of his early childhood. And then in February of 2018, we'd gotten a keyboard for Christmas for my daughter, who didn't want to play it, and we heard music. My son has now opened concerts for me. He just started playing in February of 18. He's taught himself how to play piano, because mommy can't teach him. Y'all know how that works, yes? And I mention him because he learned a lot of what he's doing from YouTube. He learned a lot from software. I think it's Synthesia is what it's called. So he's taught himself by technology. And now he wants to know, Mommy, how do I make beats? How do I do these things? So I think, it's not, I'd like to not think of technology as the new burden, but the new opportunity. I think curriculum, whenever it can include technology, is powerful and important and relevant. Yeah.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yes, sir.
Hi. Wow.
I love your shirt.
Thank you. As a musician, how do you create these relationships with like multinational major brands like Pfizer, Wynn Resorts, all the other things I saw listed? And
Yeah.
how do you open doors and bring them what you have and get them interested in contributing to your everything?
Yeah, so I'm going to tell you something you've heard in relation to your music career, which is to practice, right, to be awesome. And I'll tell you that each one of those engagements were because of something I did in an engagement before. When you show up and decide that you're going to be excellent every time. Now, excellent is not perfection, because I was killing myself when I was trying not to miss a note, or I was suffocating, worried about having a memory slip on stage. But when I decided that I was going to be excellent in the experience that I offered every single time, and I researched those companies to death. That speaker industry is a huge industry. We can make literally, now don't hate on me after I tell you this, we can make from one engagement what most people make in a year. And the reason they pay you that much is because they're already, extremely successful companies. They want people who are going to speak something into the lives of their people that's going to change the way their people do business. And so they pay you serious money to do that. But you up on that stage and you don't look like you actually care about the people in the room. I learn about the energy industry before I go into it. I learn about the fitness industry. So you be excellent in that first one, and then people always see you. I'll just say very quickly that the way that I got into speaking in the corporate side was I was speaking at an arts event, and I was told I was the keynote speaker. And I showed up, and there was a room with 1,000 seats in it, and I was like, oh my God, I'm about to have this really awesome experience. And when it was time for showtime, they escorted me not to that room, but to a very small room that only about 20 people could fit in. And I think half of them were there because they didn't know where the big room was. Do you know what I'm saying? And I remember having an ego attack and feeling like I was offended. I was supposed to be on the big stage. And I had to literally stop before I started speaking, and I prayed. And I said, God, help me give the same experience I would have given if I'd been on the big stage with 1,000 people in the room. Help me not cheat the 20 people that are in here. And I spoke my butt off. In that room was a little old lady. Listen, do not judge a book by its cover. That lady happened to be the mother of the CEO of one of these big multinational corporations. They had me come in and speak, and in that room was Coca-Cola and Hershey and Kraft. And I did what I did, and that launched something else. But do not despise the small rooms that you are in at this juncture of the game. Yeah? Yes, sir. I'll go quicker now.
We have time for potentially 2 more questions. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Mike Rowan. I
Hi.
work at Chorus America. You told an amazing story about how to bring something from yourself to your audience. So many of us are in ensembles with other people, sometimes large ensembles. Choral music is my particular field. So my follow-up question is, how do you bring the same sort of unique energy when you have other folks in your ensemble who are either following you or moreover trying to co-create with you? Do you have any advice on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think be intentional about the experience you want to create. I always say, decide who you want to be in the room hearing what you're doing, and then create an experience that would attract those people in the room. You know, so I get on orchestra sometimes when they say, you know, we want a more diverse audience, but they're playing the same William Grant Still Symphony. Nothing wrong with it, but you probably should play something other than that every year in February. You know what I'm saying? And so I think we have to begin to really, I think with the larger group, you have larger possibilities for collaboration and for creativity. And so I think ask your people what it is they've been desiring to offer, and then craft experiences around those desires. It can be really powerful. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Monica Neat-Jones, and I am a violinist from Chicago, but I'm also a classically trained ballerina. And I would just want to say your performance was absolutely inspiring.
Thank you.
But my question is, with all the talents you have of performing, how do you integrate all of those into one show? Because I always struggle with, like, you know, separating my dance from playing the violin. And it's like, I'll have my dance performances over here, and then violin over here. How do you integrate that all together?
That's what I used to do. I used to play, like, on Friday nights, I'd be in New York in these cool clubs with, like, leather and a mohawk. And then on, you know, the next week I'd be with an orchestra with a gown and much more tame hair, right? And so I just started to believe, what if I dare to believe that there's an audience who wants to see all of that in one space? And there is. Probably the thing I'm the most proud of is that when I do straight ahead concerts, I have the most diverse audiences you've ever seen, not just in ethnicity, but in age. I love kids to be in the audience. I call kids up on the stage all the time. So dare to just put them together. Don't worry about the how yet. Even if it's choppy, people are gonna appreciate parts of that experience, and then you listen to your audience and hear what they're saying. They'll tell you what they actually came for and what they actually got, then you recycle that into your next experience. Yeah? Good luck.
Our last question.
Last question.
Thank you, dear.
Hi, my name is Matthew Jamal. I'm a bassist, composer,
What's up?
poet.
Bass. Good stuff.
Yeah. I kind of, when I write my music, it's not really in one genre. Kind of blending jazz, classical, R&B, all of that. And you kind of followed a non-traditional path as well. And I was wondering, what advice would you have for someone who's going along a different path and has been told, like, that's not where you should be, and is not really following the traditional path of a bassist?
Don't listen. Don't listen. I went through a tricky part in my career where I had to, Laura Downs talked about this earlier, there's some relationships that will outgrow their season. That's a nice way that we'll put it. And I had managers who just, every time I added something new, they were like, we don't know what to say. Like, do we say you're a pianist? Do we say you're a beat maker, a fashion plate, a minister, an author? I was like, just, say yeah. All of the above. And so you're gonna have to be daring enough, courageous enough to leave behind the what ifs. Because a lot of the years that it took me before I did this, there were years that I wasn't doing it simply because I was afraid, well, what if the New York Philharmonic is watching and they catch me rapping? Maybe they won't book me because I'm rapping. They weren't booking me anyway. Why are we making decisions based on things that haven't even not happened yet? And the funny thing is, once I started blazing that trail and doing things, all those organizations that I was so afraid of that were gonna count me out started calling me in because I was doing something differently. So don't listen. Don't listen respectfully, and then carve a new path. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Jane. You're amazing. Thank you so much. So great to have you here. Thank you, Jade. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm going to leave you with 3 very quick things. To the artists in the room, to Jade, to the opening artist, to everyone who's been performing with us, for us this week, I want to say thank you. Thank you for exceeding our expectations. Thank you for sharing your authenticity. Thank you for sharing your art. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for the vigor with which you approach your art. And thank you for being here with us today. You've obviously shown us how you are the leaders who are rising, and we're here to rise with and for you. To the leadership in the room, to the allies like myself, I have one message. We have an opportunity. We have never been so many in a room. There are more than 820 people here at this conference, right? I applaud you for being here. I applaud you for being an integral part of the conversation. I applaud you for the consensus, for the actions we have already taken. But this is an opportunity. If you remember during the opening, we talked a little about a candle and how a candle doesn't lose its flame by lighting others. Our opportunity is now. Light other candles. Don't let yourself go home, lose the flame. Be all excited on your flight home, get there, let the routine take over, and forget all about the things we talked about, and then come back here to feel good again next year, etc. Come back here and tell me how many candles you've been able to light, how many doors you opened for others, and how many times you've stepped out of the way to let other leaders rise and lead us. So don't forget that. And the last thing I'll say, and that's the message to the room, come hear the finals concert at 7:30 at Detroit Orchestra Hall. The shuttles are ready to go. You'll never see a show like this. Thank you so much for being here. Look forward to seeing you there.